Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you. It's really a joy to get to come out and see Denison and worship with you this morning. What a wonderful space. It's not a smoky VFW hall or something that a lot of mission congregations are in. So I was a parish pastor for 22 years. I served congregations in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, outside of Columbus, Ohio, and in the suburbs of Chicago. In 2018, I started helping with capital campaigns with Lutheran Church Extension Fund. And in 2023, a position opened up for a full-time call there. And so now this is what I do, but I have lots of experience in congregations, and it's just wonderful to be here. So you have a great opportunity in front of you. As beautiful as this space is, it's not your space, right? Renting is never home. And so you have the opportunity to purchase that space. And you need to figure out how you're going to fund that and finance that. And so I'm here, as most of you know, to talk about a ministry expansion campaign as one of the options in front of you. I'm going to give you lots of information, and then you'll make a decision on what's best for you. And my prayer is that what's best for Christ Lutheran is exactly what will happen here. So I'm going to talk about a whole bunch of different things. So I'm going to lay it out for you so you're not saying, is he going to talk about this or that? And then I'll take questions at the end. So I'm going to go over the process. What is actually involved in a ministry expansion campaign, the way that we do it? What does a normal calendar for a campaign look like? What are kind of the big chunks, and when would you expect to run that? What are the financial goals, and how do we ask for money? That's a big deal in the capital campaign consideration is how do you do the ask? I'll talk to you about our project management software briefly, and then the cost and the value at the end. So I will get there, but I want you to see kind of what all is coming before then. So this is the agenda for what I'm going to be talking about. I love our ministry expansion campaigns. I got into doing campaigns because I tried to do one on my own when we were building a sanctuary. My second church, we had a multi-purpose room with preschool and kindergarten all around it, and we tore down and set up. And about 15 years in, we got to set up build our first sanctuary. And I discovered all the things you shouldn't do in a capital campaign the first time I did it myself. The second time we did it, we brought in some help and we figured out what it was that didn't go so well. And so I really value this process because I didn't stumble across this on my own or figure it out on my own. And once I learned it, it was really helpful. So there are essentially 5 phases to a capital campaign. It starts with preparation. In the preparation phase, we're going to build the team. I'll talk about the team in a minute, but we're going to recruit some folks that are going to really drive this campaign for us. We're going to create the materials. There's material that have to be created, a booklet, some newsletters, some different things to keep people in contact and understanding what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how we're going to pay for it. There's frequently asked questions that need to be developed. So there's lots of work on the front end to create materials. And all of that leads to congregational forums. So we start out with a couple of weekends of forums where we invite any stakeholders, anyone who's interested in what's happening and what you're purchasing and what it's going to cost and how you're going to do it, to come and talk about the project, about the financing of the project, what it's going to cost, what are renovations going to look like, what are we doing with the thrift store, all of that stuff. It's not actually, as a campaign team, what we want people talking about and thinking about. But the reality is, you can't really dream of ministry in that new space in the future if you're worried about the nuts and bolts of the project and how are we going to do this and can we afford to do it and does this make sense. If you're worried about all of the logistics, you can't stop and dream. And so we want to make sure we take care of all the logistics on the front end as we do that. So the campaign team, this would be, I know you can't probably read that from here, but all of those purple boxes are positions generally in a full campaign. So this is, if you were a church of 400 people with a school, what your team would look like. Here in this campaign, we would probably have about 8 of these folks. Campaign director. A campaign director is really important because one of the values we have in looking back at the history of capital campaigns is the reality of how often a pastor takes a call after a major project like this. And the reason a pastor often took a call after a major project like this was because the pastor ran the project and was responsible for everything and had to get the developers together and had to raise all the money and lead all the stuff while he was preparing for sermons and getting ready for worship and visiting shut-ins and going to the hospital. And he was exhausted. We make sure that doesn't happen. The campaign director is a trusted member of the congregation. Someone that folks will look to as sort of the big brother in a family conversation. Because this isn't pastor's project. This is your project. This is about the kingdom of God. He is the shepherd in the moment to lead you through this theologically and spiritually. But this is about you all doing this together. This is about Christ's church rising up together to do something significant. So we put a trusted layperson as the point person for the campaign. All of the questions go to them. They drive the team. They lead the meetings. They get stuff ready. And when there's questions and things that need to be done, we go to that campaign director. And if the campaign director needs feedback from the pastor, he can ask them, right? They can ask the pastor. But we want to protect the pastor in the midst of this project so that the pastor is doing what only the pastor can do, providing that theological guidance and inspiration for the project. There's a campaign manager. I'll show you Basecamp, but we have project management software that runs all of this. And we have somebody that monitors that and all of the to-dos, making sure that stuff's getting done on time, that everything's on task, and that if something's getting behind, there's someone giving those gentle encouragements to keep it together. And then the communications manager. Communications manager puts together all the print materials, manages the website, all of that stuff. Most congregations have someone who does that pretty well. And so we bring that person on board and have them do that, along with the pastor and then our consultant who comes in to lead the campaign and work with the team throughout the entire campaign process. That makes up the executive team of the campaign. They will make all of sort of the big logistical decisions. What's happening in the calendar? What's going to be the theme? How are we playing all of this out? And then there's several other positions that are really important. There's a prayer coordinator who runs a couple of prayer events throughout, but also keeps the team bathed in prayer and the congregation bathed in prayer. Because believe it or not, when you take on a big project like this for the kingdom, the enemy notices. And we want to make sure that we are doing everything we can to protect our congregation and our team through that. And so the prayer team does a lot of that. There's a hospitality team. There's 3 events in the campaign that I will get to. The first is those forums, that campaign launch, putting together sort of the hospitality side of that, food and drinks, making sure the space is set up, making sure that there's sound and all of that. So hospitality for the events. And then someone to lead children's ministry and youth ministry, and then a visitation leader. I'll get into the visitation part in the next piece. And a financial coordinator. Somebody has to tabulate everything that comes in. So that would be the basic team here. About 8 people that would lead it. They would build their own little teams. They would recruit their friends and other people with those skill sets to serve alongside them. And our consultant would come in and train each one of those leaders and their teams, provide all of the resources that they need, help them strategize the best ways to do things here.
Make this a little bit bigger.
Okay.
Pull it out.
But I promise this is the smallest one.
Okay. Yep.
Underneath.
You just need to come this way.
Oh, yep. Thank you, Roger. There we go. Let's move it this way a little bit more. At least we can fill the... Oh, now, there we go. It was a good idea. So implemented.
All right. So that would be the team, about 8 folks. It's not an overwhelming number of people. And as I said, they will all be trained and resourced through our consultant who would come in. So the inform phase here is, so that would be the prep phase. The inform phase is those forums where we distribute the materials, we get people together, talk about the logistics of the projects, talk about the time, and give people time to begin to process the project itself. Think about what we're doing and get comfortable with the reality of it. Because as I said, our goal is really to get people to dream about what's happening in that new space when we've got it renovated and we're doing amazing ministry there. But if people don't think it's possible or reasonable, they can't move into that phase of really thinking deeply and dreaming about ministry possibilities. So once we get done informing everybody and giving everybody a little bit of time, usually about 3 weeks for that phase, we move into our inspire phase. Our inspire phase is really about giving people room and the capacity to think about the ministry goals. The reality is this is not really a campaign to raise money. This is a campaign to raise ministry. This is a campaign to provide space to do the things that Jesus has entrusted you with and is calling you into the future to do. And that's what people want to give to. No one really wants to give to drywall and drop ceilings and buildings. They want to give to the ministry space and the things that are happening. So messages emphasize the ministry goal. We lay out usually 4 to 5 ministry goals. What's going to change in our ministry? What are we going to have the capacity to do in the future when we have this space and it's prepared? There'll be prayer events that bookend this so that we're engaging the people in prayer. This should not be transactional. This should be transformational in that it leads us deeper in our relationship with Jesus. The visitation coordinator sets up cottage meetings. These are small group meetings where we get people together to talk about the campaign itself and to really begin to think about how they're going to contribute to that. The reality is, and this is actually where the initial financial ask happens. I'll get into that in a second before I step on my next slide. Leadership commitment event. We ask the leaders to go first. We have an event where we get the leaders of the church, that would be the board, the elders, potentially key financial givers, to get together and go first in the project. Leaders need to step out and lead. This is not about celebrating leaders. This is giving them the chance to lead. And the purpose for this is that it really inspires the rest of the congregation. When you're talking about raising $500,000 and you've got a family that can give $5,000 over the next 3 years to that, they think this doesn't move the needle, right? My gift doesn't really matter in that astronomical number that we're looking at. But when the leaders go first at this leadership commitment event, 60 to 70% of the funds that are raised in the campaign will come out of this event. Right? Because you've got your high capacity givers there, you've got your most committed members there, you've got your leadership there. These are the people who are really going to drive things. But you come back the following Sunday and say, great news. We have now gotten committed to our $500,000 goal. I'm just throwing that number out there. $500,000 goal. We are already at $350,000. We need the last $150,000 to get across the finish line. Now my $5,000 or $10,000 gift is really significant to getting there, and we realize that it takes the whole church. Everyone has to participate and be a part of what God is doing in order for us to get there, and we're not waiting on the Schmidts to write the one big check to make it happen. The Schmidts have already gone. Sorry if there's a Schmidt in here. It's just a great general German name to throw out. So if you're a Schmidt, you're not on the hook. All right. Smith. All right. So there is a leadership commitment event there. And so as part of that leadership commitment event, we try to inspire the whole congregation by helping them the weekend before the congregational commitment event to realize that we're going to get across that finish line and God is doing something amazing, and my participation in this is really critical. One of our mottos is that it's not about equal gifts, it's about equal sacrifice. God has put every family here in a different financial position, in a different stage in life, with the capacity to give different amounts. So what we're calling on everyone to do is to make an equal sacrifice, whatever that looks like for you. And if we all sacrifice equally in this process, we'll get where Jesus is calling us to go. Because the reality is, Jesus doesn't need our money. I have a whole devotion around this, but that someday you may hear. But the reality is, Jesus has everything in the world, right? Jesus could have a millionaire drop $1 million check on you in the mail out of nowhere, and you'd be like, sweet, we're buying a building, right? Jesus invites us into these challenging moments because he wants to do it with us. He wants us to lean into him and discover that he is faithful, and we got to be a part of it and do it together. And that's what's really critical that happens from the spiritual side of things, is that Jesus is calling each and every one of us to do our part to make our equal sacrifice, and through that, he will get us exactly where he needs us to go. And the Inspire phase is to encourage people to really think about that, to dream about those ministry goals, and to get people in that sacrificial state of mind, realizing not that we can do this kind of ministry, but now that we've realized it, we have to do this. This has to happen in our community. This ministry and this church have to move forward in Denison. Because look what God is doing. Look at the people he's drawing to himself. Look at the lives changed. Look at the children who are growing up in the Word. Right? When you start to think about all of that, you stop thinking about a building or how much does it cost, and you say, how do we make it happen? And that's where we want to get people to through this Inspire phase, is really realizing those spiritual realities and beginning to really prayerfully think about what that looks like. This moves us into the commitment phase. We have a congregational event, so you would have an event here or somewhere else, well, usually here. And then there would be a celebration afterwards. In the event, everyone would have an opportunity to come and make a commitment. We actually help design commitment cards for children and youth because we don't want mom and dad coming forward to make a commitment, dragging the kids along who don't want to be going forward, right? We want those kids coming forward and putting something in there for Jesus too. We want the youth coming forward and making a commitment. These aren't financial commitments. You can do mite boxes and different things for the kids to help them get sort of financially plugged in and interested. But they need to be committed to the ministry of the church too. And this isn't just a financial commitment. There are boxes on that commitment card to commit to the foundational pieces that make Christ Church what it is. And we want the children to commit to that. And I'll tell you what, as a parent who's been through this, there is no greater joy than having a copy of that commitment card, because we as parents were mean parents and made a copy of it. And when they got up on Sunday morning, I don't want to go to church. You signed the card that you were going to go to church. But we want everyone to participate and be a part of that, and it's really fun. Then about 10 days worth of follow-up. Who didn't give that you expected to give? Life happens. People are traveling. There's travel, sports for kids, and all of that stuff. Campaigns are generally a 3-year process of fulfillment. Because you missed Commitment Sunday doesn't mean you're out for the next 3 years, right? We're going to call and just gently remind you, hey, did you hear what God did? Isn't it amazing? We're going to be able to move forward with this project, and here's how you can still be a part of it. So not arm twisting, but inspiring people to step up and to get all of those commitments in together. This is then followed generally by a voters meeting. We don't put the voters meeting on the front end, or you call them ministry partner meetings, right? So we don't put the ministry partner meeting on the front end. The ministry partner meeting is going to be decide how you're going to raise the funds, right? You're going to do this. How are we going to do it? This is not a promise that we're going to spend $700,000 or $500,000. This is a fact-finding mission to discover what God is providing and then how we can best use those resources. So this voters meeting is designed to say, now that we have all the facts, we know what has been committed, we know what we need to borrow if there's a lending piece to this, and we know how we're going to move forward. Now let's get together and say, this we will do. So we don't want people concerned on the front end that this is a commitment to spend anything more than what it takes to make the campaign happen. The meeting at the end, the ministry partner meeting at the end, actually is when you would decide that money can be expended from the campaign. This then leads to First Gifts Weekend. We don't ask anybody to give money to the building project until the voters have said we're moving forward and we can begin to use those funds. Then we ask people to activate their giving plan. Commitment Sunday, you bring your commitment card. First Fruits, First Gift Sunday, you bring those first gifts with you to the church, or you activate your giving plan. If you're giving out of your required minimum distribution, then you call your financial person and say, I need to change how I'm using my deferred minimum distribution. If you're giving monthly, then write the first monthly check, whatever that is. Everybody's plan looks a little different. Any questions on the process? I have questions at the end, but I realize if you're concerned about something or thinking about something now, you won't remember it in 15 minutes. Okay. When do we do this? A normal campaign calendar runs either in the fall or the spring. Summer, everybody scatters, everybody's busy. Like, right now wouldn't be a good time to be having a movement to ask people for money. And we don't do it over Christmas because Christmas is all-consuming, right? So generally, it works in one of those two moments. So normal campaign, June through August is the prep phase. We're building the team, we're getting the resources together, we're getting everything laid out, or January and February. The inform phase usually starts after Labor Day, and we have 2-3 weeks there for the inform phase. Or if you do it in the spring or the later winter, you usually do this over Lent. You tie it in with the Lenten calendar and say, let's really do those 6 weeks of Lent as the meat of our campaign. So March would be when that would kick off. October is usually Inspire or April. The commitment event is before Thanksgiving, because after Thanksgiving, everything is about Christmas, right? So November before Thanksgiving, or May before the school year wraps up and everybody starts moving out for the summer, and then you have your voters meeting as well. So right now, if you were looking forward to move forward immediately, what we would be looking at is getting the team together as soon as possible, starting to build out those campaign materials, and probably doing the campaign launch the last 2 weeks of September, with 3 weeks of October and the first week of November as the Inspire phase, and then having the commitment event usually the second week of November, voters meeting before Thanksgiving, and then First Gift Sunday, the first weekend in December, would be a normal calendar. So if we got started now or soon, we could have that going by the end of September and fit it in very comfortably to this time frame. So, and I don't think y'all want to wait until the spring to do something. Financial goals. So what are we looking at financially? So financial goals are determined by the congregational leadership. We do not come in and tell you, you have to raise X. We want to help you figure out what it is that is the goal. And it's based on what's our need, what do we have to make this happen, what's our borrowing capacity and tolerance, which are usually two different numbers. Like if we had to borrow money, how much could we borrow? And then, like, how much could we actually stomach? And those are actually Josh questions. So Josh Remington is here with me. He actually works through the Iowa district. He's native here to Iowa. And he does the lending portion, fundraising, investments, and all of that sort of thing. So he is your local LCEF guy. So we work in conjunction on that to help figure out what that is. Ideally, we would raise everything you need and there wouldn't be a borrowing component to it, right? That would be the perfect world. But the reality is that doesn't always happen, and we have to know what those contingencies are. So we build out those campaign goals sort of based on those different projections of what's needed. And we always present these in terms of ministry impact. We want to talk about, again, not how much we need to raise, but how much we can do when we've raised it. So it's called a ministry expansion campaign because our focus is on the ministry through the whole thing, because that's what we're really actually all about. So here we go into the ask. How many of you have ever been a part of a capital campaign in the past? A couple of folks? Have you ever had the dreaded living room conversation? Where somebody, small group, came into your living room and said, this is what we're doing, this is how much we need you to give in order to be able to do this. It's a really uncomfortable thing. A couple of heads are nodding. It's a really uncomfortable conversation. And in the Lutheran world, it doesn't work really well. Most of the other companies you can talk to do some version of this where they have, what do they call it, benevolence software that can dig into your personal information. It's all out there. They can see what you pay in taxes, what you have invested, what you have in savings, what your capacity is to give, and they can project a number that says your family needs to give $50,000 to this campaign. And then they put together a group from the church to come sit down in your living room and say, you need to give $50,000 to this campaign. How are you going to feel about that? I didn't like it. How do you know what I can give? In the Lutheran world, we don't like people digging into our financial history and background and all of that stuff. We don't do that. What we do is we find the need. So this is just a general giving pyramid based on $1 million and I think 150 giving units. We'll create a pyramid like this that will get customized for your campaign and your congregation. So once we have an algorithm that lays out, so if we were doing a $500,000 campaign based on 50 giving units, it would lay out how many people you need to give at what levels. We have a conversation with your leadership team, so maybe we don't have someone that can give $100,000. Well, where do you think the top end of that is? How do we build out the rest? But what happens for us, instead of going into your living room with a number or sending you a letter that tells you what your contribution must be to this campaign, we bring out a pyramid like this, and then we sit down in these cottage meetings and we have a conversation together as a family. Because what you'll see is that everybody on the left-hand side of that needs to participate in order for this to be successful. And you'll see on the right-hand side of that how much a month each one of those central gifts is. So people can begin to start to think about, how does this actually impact my budget? What can I actually do? And where do I fit on here? Because the reality is everyone will fit on here. And in that cottage meeting, what we'll ask you to do is begin to identify where you start to think about giving and begin to pray about where Jesus really wants you to be. So the financial ask is all inter-family instead of a committee that gets together. So we get you together to talk about your church. Why do I love Christ? Why is it important that everybody discovers this place? What are the ministry goals and which ones am I committed to? And then what does my participation look like? What does my equal sacrifice look like? When somebody shows up in your living room and says, you need to give $20,000, and you get done bristling and you go, fine, I'll do it. You get to the end of that, and at the end of it you go, see, I did it. I told him I would do it, and I did it. Did your faith grow at all in that experience? No. But when you as a family sit down and go, do you think we could do $20,000? Might mean we skip a vacation. It might mean we don't get the new truck. It might mean, you know what? Let's try it. And you get to the end of that and you discover that not only did you meet what you had committed to Jesus, but that Jesus showed up and you didn't miss a vacation and you drove the new truck here. And you get done with that. Are you pounding your chest saying, look what I did? Or are you going, look what he did? Look what God did. We took a risk and gave more than we were comfortable giving, and God showed up. Isn't he amazing? And your faith grows. Our process is designed to help you grow in your faith rather than pound your chest at the end of the process and see how amazing God is. I've done more than 20 campaigns, and I have never had one that used this system and followed our process that has come up short or failed. So it works, and people really grow in their faith through it. Money is a huge issue in American culture. It's the one thing we hold on to in case God doesn't show up as our backup plan. And when we let go of that, we give God the opportunity to show up and discover that He was our safety net all along. So there's that. Also, when you make a commitment, it is not a blood oath to the church. Right? If life happens, if something changes, if your career changes, you can always contact the office and say, I need to change my commitment. You can reduce the number that you gave. You can also increase the number that you gave or committed. So we encourage people to really step out in faith and challenge God. He has a lot to say on this. So Basecamp is our project management software. I'm going to pop it up here on the screen real quick, just to show you. We guide everything through. Of course, it helps if I hit the right button. We guide everything through here. In the past, if you've done campaigns, you got a giant binder. Oh, don't do that. Well, it's not going to work for me.
You want the internet password?
Sure. I don't want to waste people's time. Is it easy?
No.
No, I'll just talk you through it. In the past, you used to get a giant binder, a big 3-ring binder that's best purpose was as a doorstop to hold something open because you couldn't find anything in it. We now have everything on Basecamp. All of our communication takes place there. There's message boards, there's instant messaging, there's group texting or messaging. You're never looking for where was that email chain that we were trying to have that conversation on, or was it a text message, or it's all on Basecamp. We train the team in it, and all of our resources are there. Planning documents, schedules, to-do lists, which is digitized and sends you reminders of when things are due, examples from other congregations, your contact with your consultant is all right there on Basecamp. So as you're working through it, it will all be online. You can get it on your phone. I do 90% of my Basecamp work off my phone. It's a really simple tool to use. Essentially, if you can manage Facebook, you can handle Basecamp. And we'll have one person here trained as kind of the go-to person that's following everything. If you get stuck or lost, we'll help you. Any questions on any of what I just talked about, the financial piece or Basecamp? All right, cost and value. So, oh, that's interesting. So what I discovered when I did my first campaign myself happened to be sort of true statistically. When you run a capital campaign yourself, generally you raise about 60% of your annual income in a 3-year commitment to the campaign. So here at Christ, it's about $200,000 a year, right? Is your annual plate offering to the ministry. I see some people scowling, but I see a few people who look like they know what they're doing or shaking their heads yes. So that's about right. So when you do it yourself, that's generally what you raise. So let's just say you have a roaringly successful campaign. You raise 75% of your annual income. You have $130,000, as I understand, in a building fund already set aside to help move things forward. So you raise $150,000. And you add it to that building fund, and you're at $280,000, which is a nice chunk of change. It does not meet the need, though, right? This doesn't get us where we need to be without borrowing a significant amount. A ministry expansion campaign generally raises between 1.5 and 3 times your annual giving. So that would be somewhere between $300,000 and $600,000. And we very rarely are at the 1.5 times. We're usually between 2 and 3 times your annual giving with those. So even if we had a marginally successful campaign at 1.5 times your annual giving, you're at $480,000, which actually puts you in the ballpark of where you need to be. So in my mind, a less than successful campaign would actually meet the need here. And if we had a very strong campaign and raised that 3 times and got to 3 times your annual income, we're at $600,000, and we've not only bought the building, we've renovated it, and we didn't borrow a thing. That's pretty phenomenal, right? That's where we want to be. So just to show you, when I talk about those kind of numbers, that's kind of the difference between doing it in-house and not. So the cost for a ministry expansion campaign. Now, I want to couch this properly. A full campaign with LCEF would run about $85,000. That's what it costs for us, and all of our fees, our proprietary stuff, our copyrighted stuff to be used in a campaign according to the industry standard. Most of our competitors are somewhere around $120,000. Okay? LCEF, Lutheran Church Extension Fund, is the church. It's the church's money that we're using to do all of this stuff. If you have investments with LCEF, this is how those investments are used to support congregations, to lend them money, and you get interest back through your investments by lending that money to other churches. So we actually prorate our process according to the size of your average worship attendance. So if you're under 500 people in worship on a Sunday, it goes down to $70,000. If you're under 250, it goes down to $40,000. And if you're under 100, or in that kind of under 120 in my mind, we reduce that price by $55,000. And so what we're talking about here is a campaign that largely covers our cost. But on top of that, so just so you can understand the difference, it's not coming out here and saying, hey, here's this huge chunk of money. It's actually, to go with anyone else would be way more expensive. But we also stage it so that you don't have to pay it all up front. I know you have money in your building fund. You want to use that for other things. So we ask for 10%, $3,000, when you sign the contract as earnest money that we're going to do this. If for some reason you cancel, we keep the $3,000, but you don't have to pay anything else. When we're in the middle of the campaign, so usually about October if we were to start now, an additional 20% would be due to help cover our costs for the consultant in particular. And then the additional 70% isn't due until you're receiving proceeds from the campaign. Okay, so about $24,000 of this can actually be built into the campaign itself and doesn't need to come directly out of the money that you currently have on hand. The return on investment, so if you were to raise 2 times your annual income, would be 13 to 1. So if I told you I had an investment vehicle that would pay you $13 for every dollar that you gave me, how many dollars would you give me? I'd be giving you a lot. And if we got to that sort of hallelujah goal of $600,000, that would be a 20 to 1 return on investment for your money. Questions on cost or breakdown? Go ahead, sir.
When you say after the campaign, so is that after people start contributing around Christmas time? I'm sorry.
So usually that 70% is broken up into 2 payments, where the first one would be due around Christmas time, and then the next one would be due around February.
Okay. So the total, you would be with the church through the entire 3 years?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. So once the campaign itself is over, your consultant stays with you throughout those 3 years. We generally have quarterly check-ins to see how's the money coming in, what do we need to strategize, are we dedicating the new sanctuary now? That's a great time to invite people in. Are new members being informed about the process, or about what's happening, so that they can contribute as well? So we continue to work with you throughout that to make sure that every dollar that's committed comes in. When you talk to other lending agencies about a capital campaign, they will generally, if you are using that money toward support for a loan, would allow you to commit between 70 and 75% of the committed dollars as dollars to be used in consideration for that loan, okay? Because that's the industry average, is about 75 to 80% fulfillment. Ours is 110% for fulfillment currently, and it continues to grow. We actually end up bringing in more money by the end of the 3 years than was actually committed during the campaign phase, because we stay with you. Everyone else, you get to the end of the campaign and they go, great job, good luck, and they walk out the door. But we keep coming, and there are no additional charges for annual visits, for helping strategize and plan events and different things. Once you've paid that fee, we're all in for the next 3.5 years. Yep. And the other thing is we'll negotiate whatever works best for you. For us, it's not about how fast can we get the money or what does that look like. If you want to pay it all up front, great. If we need to structure it some other way, we're happy to do that. With this process, you get a dedicated campaign consultant. This person is going to meet with the team every other week for basically 5.5 months as the process is going on. They're also available 24/7 through base camp. It's an LCMS pastor. I actually already have a guy set aside. He's my favorite consultant, so you would be getting my best guy. He's coming out of Illinois. Don't hold that against him. Because he's a Michigan guy. Don't hold that against him either.
I have a Michigan pastor.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good. Go blue. All right. So at any rate, so you would have him. He would continue to walk with you through the campaign. Again, every other meeting is in person, so to help keep costs down, we do a lot of the planning meetings in person, and then we do Zoom meetings for check-ins. So initially, the first couple of meetings, he would be on site, meeting individually with each team leader and their teams, meeting with the executive team, getting the whole thing built out, making sure everybody's trained. Then the first check-in, he would jump in on Zoom. The rest of the team would get together, and he'd be there to answer any questions. 2 weeks later, he would come in person, meet with anybody who needs help working their plan or figuring out the last of logistics. 2 weeks later, he would be on Zoom doing a check-in. So every other meeting is in person through the campaign. The campaign consultant also generally preaches once, depending on the pastor's. Your pastor doesn't seem like he would be threatened by that. The campaign consultant usually preaches once as well, and comes to train the visitation team and all of that stuff. So you have somebody dedicated to this campaign, and it's the only campaign that he is currently doing. It's a proven process. One of the follow-up questions I always get is, so when doesn't this work? I have had 2 campaigns that failed. Both of them decided that they knew better than we did and decided not to follow the process. They decided they didn't need cottage meetings and they weren't going to do a leadership event because people know what we need to give, and leaders shouldn't be separated from the people. Okay, I get that on a general basis. And they decided not to do those 2 pieces. One of them simply had to take out a much larger loan than they thought they needed because people showed up and there was no encouragement, and the people who were giving smaller gifts, instead of stepping up and saying, instead of $5,000, maybe we'll do 10 because we're almost there, those givers dropped out of the campaign entirely because they went, well, we're not anywhere near our goal. My gift doesn't matter, so I'm not going to. So they backed out. The other one actually had to cancel the project and give everyone their money back, which is really embarrassing. But again, it was because they decided. So my question to them was why did you hire us? If you're not going to listen to us, don't hire us. Those are the only 2 that haven't worked. I've had 22 successful campaigns. We currently have 8 campaigns going on in the Midwestern area this fall. So it's an exciting time, and the process really does work. Base camp, you get everything online in one place all the time. So those are some of the benefits that you get out of this. So similar congregations. The question came up. So what have other churches done in this? So Calvary Mechanicsburg Pennsylvania was one of the earliest churches that I did. Actually, it was during COVID. That was crazy. About 80 in worship. Their goal was $400,000 for sanctuary renovations, new organ and stuff. They raised just under $450,000 with their campaign. Peace Conroy, Arkansas is actually just wrapped up this last spring. Their goal was 400 and they raised 412. Hope St. Louis was last fall, about 90 in worship. Their goal was $500,000 renovating a basement and some other stuff. They were at $520,000. So you can see where the goal is about where we were aligned, but we've had some bigger ones too. King of Glory in Providence Forge, Virginia, 55 folks in worship, and they raised $713,000 toward their project, well above their goal. I can give you lots of bigger, impressive ones. We do a lot of campaigns between 120 and 160 in worship. So that tends to be where a lot of our congregations range. So these are ones where you're at, but you can see that $500,000 to $600,000 number is something that congregations your size do pretty consistently through our process, which is about where you need to be. Yes, ma'am.
Of your successful campaigns, what are some, or if there are any, like what are some common hurdles that you see repeatedly throughout all of them?
Initially, recruiting the team tends to be a challenge. Like, do we have enough people? We actually help you strategize that. So we ask you to elect the first, essentially 4 folks. Pastor's one, so he's already in. Campaign director, communications director, campaign manager. We get those 4 people in place. The consultant and I come in for the first set of meetings, and we help you talk through who to ask to be a part of the other positions. So was generally one early on where a lot of people were like, I don't know how to recruit a visitation person. So we actually help you brainstorm who should be in on that. Campaign goals, again, a lot of the things that we've done over the last couple of years we've really refined. So beginning to work with our district vice presidents to help set campaign goals was a part of it. And then the other one was the leadership commitment event used to be a sticking point because people didn't like the idea of the leaders doing something apart from the congregation. And so, but we didn't used to call it that. We used to call it like a lead gift event or something. And so it wasn't obvious who was there or why they were there, so re-messaging that has been helpful. So I think most of the problems we had when I first came on, I've been spending a lot of time going through and reworking that. So thank you. That's a good question. Yes?
So I'm assuming those congregations also paid you $30,000 for whatever
the going rate was at the time, yeah.
Yeah. So what they made is above and beyond the $30,000 that they paid you?
Well, everyone did it a little different. So no, this is what at the end of the campaign when they announced the commitments, this was what was announced. Some of them took their campaign fees out of this. Some of them paid us up front. Yeah, so that was always a little different for each one.
If a person, and I'm pointing to myself first because I still try to live as if I'm in the 1970s, I don't do much at all online.
Mm-hmm.
And on my phone, I do texts and only school emails. I'm not saying I can't learn. I'm just very stubborn about it. So for those of us that are either choose to be or are challenged in that way, will that be okay with me being really uncomfortable with base camp and needing to get online and do?
You would not be the campaign manager. No, I totally get it. Yeah, no, that's why our consultant is there, because he can actually walk you through all the resources on Basecamp. Everything on Basecamp can be downloaded. So if you use your computer, everything on Basecamp can be downloaded, so you can work on it on whatever platform you're comfortable. But so for some of those other roles, though, if you wanted to be the visitation coordinator or in charge of hospitality or things, there actually isn't a lot to do on Basecamp other than updating people on what your process is, what you're working through or where you need input. And that's not terribly hard. We could show you easily how to do that.
I just figured besides myself going,
Right.
The other people in there?
But only the campaign leaders are on there. So if you're looking for a leadership position, you would be on Basecamp. If you're part of a team, the leader would be on Basecamp. You would get everything else in print. And for the congregation, everything is print, or usually newsletters go out as an email, that sort of thing. But you just open up the email and the document's there. So that's a fair question. Yep. I guess I could jump to there. Other questions? Yes, sir.
Okay, so with your calendar, wanting to start in August or starting in, when is it, January? With us only having the idea that we're buying the building with a thrift shop, we don't have any plans for renovation, none of that stuff. We don't have a clear vision of what the building's going to look like. Would it be better for us to wait till January, till after we have plans and all that stuff in motion, to give people a better vision of what we're going to have?
That piece, yeah, if we're pushing toward the renovation costs, it would be helpful to have more information. I'm not sure where the $200,000 for renovation sort of came in our conversation. I may have made that up as I was going. I don't know.
We really don't have a concrete number or something close.
Yeah, I think we've discussed $200,000 to $300,000 probably to renovate it. But I don't know if, those are all guesstimates.
Yep.
Right, we've never had professionals come in and look at it. We just had the offer accepted not too long ago.
Right. I would think if we spent some time thinking about sort of high level, we would be able to figure out by a late September launch, like how many classrooms are we thinking are going to be here, and what does worship in general look like in this space without having those hard costs. Because right now the big concern is purchasing the property, right, and getting that done. And so those renovations are going to be down the road anyway.
And didn't you say that a lot of the things that we would be voting on and deciding on would be later at that point?
Yeah, in the November voters meeting would be more exact. Well, but to his point, the more concrete things you have up front, the more people can dream about the space, dream about the ministry, and understand why it's going to cost what it costs.
That's exactly what
So it can be, but I don't think with this in particular that's kind of a deal breaker or something to. If you're worried about, because if you do the campaign in the spring, you're not getting any proceeds till next summer. So I don't know how that messes with the purchase of the property or any of those like lending timelines that might need to go into that, and other vehicles that might play into that, like a construction loan for some of the renovations, which is an interest-only vehicle that we have through the process of renovation and things. If you were using that, and that's Josh's territory, but. So the question there would be, when is it helpful to have the resources? It's also, there are a lot of congregations who do back-to-back campaigns, because you realize we're going to need to buy it. So we raised $500,000 now. We have $300,000 in renovations coming. So let's get out of this debt-free in 6 years, right? And so they'll do a follow-up campaign to the first one, because you've got new people, things have reset. And just pay off the whole thing. So you don't necessarily need to be thinking in terms of a 20-year mortgage on anything either. That happens quite frequently. Other questions?
But just to verify though, when you say a second campaign, that's another 30,000, correct?
Correct. Yep. Unless you've grown significantly.
Can you state what his question was?
He said, would a follow-up campaign require the same fee again? Yes, each effort, yeah, we would come in and for the third campaign we usually discount because you're tired of seeing us by then. Sorry, you had a question.
And this might be more for Josh too, but could you guys dig into or elaborate a little bit more on what, again, just kind of what is LCEF, how does it differ institutionally from a commercial lender, and how is that, the process of obtaining and servicing a loan, how does that look different than?
That would be 100% Josh.
So you're going to take the LCEF side since you got the mic?
Here, I can give you.
We got a handheld mic here.
So in the 1950s, the Lutheran Church realized that costs were getting beyond what most congregations could handle on their own, and that we needed to begin to pool our resources so that we weren't simply paying secular institutions for money. And so the Lutheran Church Extension Fund was created as a vehicle to actually use investments from Lutherans to support other Lutheran congregations. And so in essence, it's sort of the bank of the church, but I'm not supposed to use that word because we are technically not a bank. We have investment vehicles that are completely separate and not tied to national cost of funds and all that sort of thing. So that's where it started, was Lutherans realizing that we needed to support each other and pool our resources to share with churches, and that's the primary mission of LCEF. About 20 years ago, we started to realize that healthy churches are much more likely to repay their loans than unhealthy ones. And so we started to put in departments like mine in Ministry Solutions to help make sure churches stayed healthy and growing. So on top of ministry expansion campaigns, I do strategic planning. I also do stewardship processes in churches. And so I'm there as sort of congregational support to make sure that congregations are healthy and moving forward in healthy ways. So lending is Josh's hat.
Yeah, lending. And I will say that I'm going to touch this because I've been on the job for all of about 3 months now. So hi, welcome. I'm glad that I'm here, and I'm glad I get to meet all of you. But lending is a little bit interesting because we're going to walk with you every step of the process. There's multiple different facets. There are multiple different tools that we have. Everything from an unsecured ministry improvement loan, which is up to $150,000. So if you're saying, hey, we've got the building paid off and we just need a light little retouch here or there, we can do something like that, which who doesn't like an unsecured loan? Again, as Pastor Kennaugh said, some of those for the first year and a half are what we call cost of funds. So interest only, so you're talking 4% interest right now. Who knows what that'll be in August? If you have your crystal ball, I'd love to know what those rates will be, but we do those. We also have longer term loans. We have bridge loans for during the payout period of campaigns. We also have construction loans for bigger projects. And then we have the permanent long-term loan. So if you want to say, 20 years, we want to put this in play and amortize that out over 20 years or something like that, we do all of that too. And that's why I'm here today. Eric is great at this. He absolutely could have it. He doesn't need to be driving from the back seat, but it's here that I want to walk with you and want to walk with you every step of the way. And so I'm here from the beginning just to say, here, I'm here to help, and I'm here to help make sure that we can achieve your goals. And lending can be a little bit of a beast, right? And so that's why I'm here to help.
Good. And really, kind of bottom line for me is when you get into financial hardship, as much as on the front end the bank says, we're here to help, they're not there to help, right? They don't care why you're in trouble and what you're trying to do to get out of it. LCEF will bend over backwards to make sure that we can help you. We've moved loans, mortgages essentially into interest only for periods to help congregations through slow times and different things. So borrowing from us isn't just that our cost of funds, interest rates tend to rise slower than the market, and conversely they tend to drop a little slower than the market. But we really do bend over backwards because we're a part of the church and we're committed to church's success. Your bank doesn't care whether your church succeeds or not. They just care whether you pay your mortgage. And so we have a very different level of investment in congregations that we work with.
That's exactly right. Actually, I'll never forget it. Our head of credit and all the credit review said the number one worst thing we could ever have happen is for us to have to call a loan. Right? Because that's saying we're pulling the ministry out of some place. And that is absolutely the worst thing we could ever imagine. And so working with every congregation, we want to help, we want to be here. We also want to make sure that you're set up for success. I know of one congregation that we've already worked with that they wanted to take out a much bigger loan than was feasible. And we prayed with them and said, is this the right thing? And kind of helped walk with them and say, let's make sure you're successful in this, and really led them, and they came to a rationalization of what that loan needed to be long-term for their success and to achieve their mission goal. So it is different. You know, Pastor Kennaugh mentioned earlier that, you know, the reason we're able to decline and drop some of those fees from rather than being $85,000 to $30,000 is somebody in a congregation just like this somewhere in the state or in the country has taken their personal money and made an investment with LCEF. So whether that was $5 or $500,000 or somewhere in between, so they've made an investment so that your church can grow. And that's what makes LCEF different, is that it's not a lending institution as far as a local bank. And we like our local banks, don't get me wrong. We all need credit. We all need our checking accounts, that type of thing. But LCEF is different in that we are part of the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. I will put a plug in for the investment side since we're talking there. If I see a lot of young kids, hey, guess what? How many bank accounts can get 3%? The young investor steward account from LCEF can get 3%. So if you haven't heard, $25 to start. It's a really great place to start your kids thinking. Also, I have to keep throwing it out there that we have term notes, which are kind of like CDs, similar, and we don't have savings accounts or checking accounts because those, are banking terms, but we have all access. And again, check our interest rates because, again, any investments that you make or friends of yours make help us fund exact projects just like this. So,
yep.
While we're talking
Thank
investments, there's my shameless plug.
And most young investor accounts are started by grandparents for their grandkids, just to throw that out there. All right, but I know you guys still have a voters meeting. I want to respect your time today. So any other questions, anything else that you'd like to follow up? Yes, sir.
Just wanted to get a good grasp on the resources that you have to help set up. Because if we're doing this pretty much from the ground up, so we're going to have we have a small building committee that we had that tried to get everything lined up, and going from there forward, you have a lot of resources that'll help whoever is in charge of that reach out.
Yes.
And get helpers and volunteers.
Yep, we help you. One, we help you strategize on who to encourage to step up into leadership roles. But we have sheets on the best ways to ask, things to recruiting tips and helps for recruiting volunteers and things like that. And our consultant and myself are always open to, and very often I will jump on a Zoom call with somebody because they're like, what is this role? And they told me it was kind of like this, but what am I doing? And we'll sit down with people and help them understand what it is and whether they're a good fit for it or not. So yeah, so we do help. We have every campaign, every congregation coming into a campaign is really starting at zero, right? That they have not, beyond kind of getting their building project together, they have not really thought through how does all this work. And so that's where we do come alongside and specifically help with. So we're designed to do that. Yep. Good. Anything else? Yes, sir.
So we've got our mission partner meeting here after you're done. And so we've got an opportunity to vote on this. I know that we set it up so that we could follow your presentation, so everyone's got the same information. I know there's some people who would like us to postpone, and for good reason, to have time to sit and chew on this for a while. In which case, the soonest we could have another mission partner meeting would be August 17th. And at that point, is it still feasible to do this campaign in the fall, or are we out until the spring?
Yeah, by August 17th, yeah, we would be looking at a spring campaign.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to know that for certain one way or another, so we had that clear in our minds, what our options were.
Right, yeah.
Which, if the congregation wants to do that, that's great, but
right.
we just want to know for certain so we're not not just taking guesses.
Because that gives us still enough time on your, have you had that laid out for our June close date on the building?
It does, it
If we
does.
would start it in the spring.
Yeah, because we do have
Right.
the option to close at the latest by June of next year.
Oh, okay.
And so we've got.
Yeah,
kind of a long
it
run after
would
that.
give you that.
But yeah, we just want to make sure that we have all our questions answered before we.
Right, yeah, we wouldn't be able to start that late in August and really do it well.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So, and that's okay, either way. Well, let me pray for all of you, and then I'm going to scoot out and let you all have a conversation about what your thoughts are. Heavenly Father, we just thank you for Christ. We thank you for the mission here, for these wonderful people who are gathered and dreaming about the future in a space that you're setting aside for them. We ask you just to guide their conversation, Lord, to the direction that they need to go and the timeline that's best for them, Lord, so that as they move forward, they can move forward with confidence, knowing that they're walking with you and that in you all things are possible. So bless their conversation today in Jesus' name. Amen.